Everybody good? All right. Well, welcome to our first virtual PD. And now I'm going to turn it over to Lori and Renee, who is going to be the presenters for tonight.
Great. Well, I do want to make sure everybody gives us a little bit of grace as far as remember that we have other people that are quarantined with us. So although I have an adult in my house right now, I also have a 2-year-old and an 8-week-old. So I am going to hope for the best that no one comes knocking on my door, and I'm sure Lori's going to hope for the best that the adults in her house or the dogs don't bark. But if you could give us a little bit of grace, knowing that that might happen. That just might happen. You might get a face that appears that's not supposed to be here. So thank you for coming. Tonight we're going to talk about the whys of we do a virtual preschool classroom, some platforms, and then also talk about how we can support the family and the children, not just with educational goals, but meeting all the needs of all of the family's goals. So you can go to the next slide, Karen. Okay, so our group agreement, as Karen talked about, that she did mute all of your squares. If you type something in the chat and maybe we miss it, and just understanding that there are a lot of participants, just raise your hand and we will make sure to unmute you and answer your questions. Please share your ideas. This is a time for us to all collaborate. We know that many of you have already started your online virtual pre-K classrooms. But keeping in mind that it's just like with our physical classrooms, classrooms evolve, they change, family needs change, children's needs change, and that's what we're going to talk about a lot tonight. So if we're talking about something and you have something exciting to share that was maybe a success for your virtual pre-K classroom, raise your hand or type it in the chat because we would love to hear from you. I'm ready for the next slide. Okay, so our objectives tonight are to learn different online platforms to use to create your virtual pre-K classroom, understand the rationale of continuing a preschool classroom online during programming interruptions. We know that this is not just something that's happening right now, that this is a possibility that may happen in the fall. And so now is our time to really kind of find our niche and learn about the different platforms that are out there, and maybe even learn about how we can support some of our learning objectives in our online classroom. Develop a plan for our programs to create and begin your online classroom, but also to delegate responsibilities within your program based on what works for your families. We're going to talk a lot about that and circle back to that. What is working for your families? We are all under a tremendous amount of stress. Every family is operating differently, and so we really want to give you some tools to address all of their needs, but also to work with your co-teachers. This isn't something that we want to just delegate just to lead teachers. We want you to be doing team planning and working as a team just as you are in your classroom. And to understand and develop an easy-to-use daily routine adapted for your families to use at home, encouraging a preschool-like setting. Next slide. So things to consider before you set up your virtual classroom. Again, we know that you guys probably, a lot of you have virtual classrooms, but here's some things to think about. And remember that, again, just as our physical classrooms change and evolve, you can still change, and your virtual classroom can evolve based on maybe your family needs. Maybe what you're doing right now is not working with what your family daily routine is. Maybe you've got students or families that are giving you feedback that is maybe not positive feedback about your virtual classroom. Maybe you're not getting any participation at all with your students, so you need to rethink that. So what we need to think about are what forms of technology are available to your students. Not technology isn't available to every child. That's our reality. And you might assume, well, my parents, they all have laptops. Well, you might consider, do they have working internet all the time at home? I live in a house that I live in a great area, but we have really stinky internet. I was telling another teacher mentor earlier today that when it rains, we don't get internet. That's the joke in our house with my husband and I. Oops, it drizzled today, so our internet's gonna go out. Maybe they don't have internet. Are there school-age children in the home that also have online classrooms? Maybe they only have 2 laptops or 2 notebooks, but they have 3 kids in the house. And so to them, that's really difficult, to your pre-K parents, to take a laptop away from their 2nd grader for their pre-K kid to watch a read aloud or to do an activity. So that could be a barrier that they're facing. Are children still living with parents, or are they having to live with other family members outside of the home? This is something that as a teacher mentor team, we are finding is happening within our programs. Single parents that have multiple kids, it's very difficult. It's a challenge for them to be able to address all their needs. So maybe grandparents are stepping up, saying, well, I'll take the 4-year-old. So if the 4-year-old is living with grandparents and you're sending something via email to the parent, that child's not going to be able to benefit from that activity. So you need to identify, where are the kids even staying and living? Who are the adults? How do I contact them? And then with all of this said, how are you going to collect all of this data above and create a plan that works for all families? We talk a lot about differentiating instruction, changing your instruction based on each individual child's needs. It is the same thing with families. I know for myself, I am a really simple person, but I'm a list maker. I know if I were a program teacher, I know exactly what I would do. I would create a spreadsheet. I would have my class list, their contact information, what their parents said, how they want to be communicated, and maybe that information. So if they said, you know what, I'm not a Facebook person, I'd rather you text me, then I would put that down, text, and here's their number. Maybe parents say, I can't handle any more links sent to me, any more text messages. I just can't do it. I need paper packets. Okay, maybe paper packets are what this family needs. But our reality right now is that we have to identify what every family needs is probably going to be a little different. And we need to make every effort to accommodate that, but to also keep in mind, what are your needs? We know that this is really incredibly difficult right now for all of you as well. I shared with my colleagues my day yesterday and my day today, and it was rough. Yesterday, I had to take my newborn to get immunizations, and I had really worked myself up about it, taking her outside of the house. I knew I had a mask. I know I've got gloves. I had a car seat cover for her, but I just didn't want to take her out, but knew that I had to do it. I showed up at the doctor's office, and there was a note on the door that said, due to COVID-19, our office is closed. So I was all worked up. Long story short, they rerouted me to a different office they forgot to tell me about, and this office had 10 different providers in it, so it was very packed. Although people were social distancing, it immediately brought anxiety up to me. This morning I woke up, my newborn had not slept all night from her immunizations. My 2-year-old was just not cooperating, and I just broke down and started crying. And I immediately had this mom guilt of, I'm not doing these activities with my 2-year-old. I've got to stay on a schedule. And just, I wanted to share that with you to show you that even as teacher mentors, we're struggling. We know that this is a struggle for you guys too. You guys have families. A lot of you have kids. They've got schoolwork. So when you're setting up your virtual classroom, think about, yes, this works for my families. Now, how can I make this work for me? Because you have to take care of yourself as well as taking care of the families. You cannot create a schedule for you that is going to be so stressful that it's bringing you down and your family as well. So really keep those kinds of things in mind. Next slide. Okay, so online platforms and other forms of communication. There is going to be a couple slides coming up, a whole lot of information. I'm not going to go through every single platform with you because thankfully, Allie Schwartz, oh, we love her so much on our team. She actually compiled this list for all of you and is very tech savvy, and she has offered her information out, which is at the end of this presentation, that if you want to try any of these platforms, she is very willing to help and offer you some tech support on that. That is not my wheelhouse. I don't think it's any of our wheelhouses. But I'm going to kind of go through some things that you can use. The first one is obviously Facebook. A lot of people use Facebook, and I think I have been on Facebook more than I ever have been in my whole life, just looking for social contact with people. I'm connecting with people that I graduated high school with that I have not talked to, probably didn't talk to in high school either, but I'm talking to them now on Facebook. So that seems to be a good platform. Zoom, obviously, that we're using. We would highly recommend you use some sort of face-to-face, if you can, periodically for the social aspect of your classroom. There are a lot of programs that are using Zoom meetings for like show and tell, for small group times. I have heard of teachers just FaceTiming a student that's struggling and that is sad and doesn't know why they're not seeing their teachers and their friends. I would most definitely encourage programs to be doing that, maybe even weekly if you can. Google Hangouts. I've heard of programs using the Remind app, Brightwheel. There's a program called Blue Jeans. There's a whole lot of things online right now. There are a lot of companies that are offering free memberships right now. So that's the technology part of it. The second one is snail mail. I talked to a program in a mentor meeting about this when we were discussing parent-teacher conferences, end-of-the-year conferences. This program is making every effort to make contact with parents, whether it is via phone, via Zoom, via FaceTime, and they have 3 families that are just not responding. And so we talked about putting together packets and mailing to these families, mailing activities maybe that the kids can complete with a self-addressed envelope to the school so that it's very easy for families to mail things back. That could be maybe an assignment like, draw a picture of what you did today at home with your parents. I'd love to see it. Or I had a teacher that actually was telling me this was really cute. She has a little guy that collects rocks and has always collected rocks at school. And so she really, really wanted to make a point to mail a tiny little box to this little guy so that he could mail back some like special rocks that he collected. So there's a lot of different things that you can do with snail mail. Texting. Texting seems to be a way that a lot of parents, particularly younger parents, like to communicate. So if you have a family that says, I'm not going to do Facebook, I'm not going to do email, maybe texting some fun activities for your students. Be very careful, the last part of this that I put in, be very careful not to overwhelm parents with various links. We know that as educators, there's so many great things out there for parents, but be careful about every other day sending a parent a link. It becomes so overwhelming to them that they just say, forget it, I'm not even opening any of these. So maybe you might want to say to parents, weekly, I will send you some resources. Or maybe you want to just switch it up a little bit, and maybe one week you did a link, and maybe the next week, if you are going into your classrooms, maybe every parent gets an actual paper activity. Maybe it's an activity printed on paper that's mailed to them, but be very mindful not to overwhelm with that. Next slide. So why do we need a daily schedule? So our great teacher mentor, Lori Craig, put this wonderfully today in our meeting. We want to make sure we know that you guys know why we do a daily routine. You know the benefits of it. Right now, we need to have parents see the benefits of a daily routine. So a little personal note, I was all gung-ho with this when this shutdown happened. I'm like, oh, I got this. I am an early childhood educator. I'm all about this. Okay, so this is my 2-year-old's schedule. This is what we're gonna do. And I don't know why I forgot what babies are like, because it's only been 2 years ago, but I completely forgot. And all of a sudden it hit me the first night we were home from the hospital with my daughter Hazel that newborns don't sleep. And I don't do well with no sleep at all. In fact, I'm very grumpy, and I wake up the next morning and have very regretful thoughts about what I've said to my husband in the night with feedings and everything else. And I had this pie in the sky idea that I was going to be doing small group and this and that. We're going to be doing the same thing at the same time every day. And my daughter Hattie, she's going to be a dream. She's going to go to sleep for nap time exactly when I tell her she's going to go to sleep. And you guys, the first day, it all went in the garbage. It didn't work. And I had to refocus myself on remembering, again, what is going to work for me and why is it important. I really kind of fell off the wagon with it. And for the first 2 weeks, my 2-year-old didn't have a schedule. And let me tell you, we paid for it. We paid a very big price for that. She wasn't going to bed at night. She was waking up in the middle of the night. She was crying during the day. And once we got her back on a consistent schedule, everything just changed. Her challenging behavior got better. She was sleeping kind of back to what she was doing when she was going to school every day. So the purpose of this slide is to not say we don't think you guys know about a daily routine, but this is how you need to communicate to parents about a daily routine. And it's a big part of high quality early childhood classrooms. This is a really big part of that. Our little kiddos rely on predictability. As I said about my daughter, she relies on that. When I'm giving her that 5 more minutes to play, when we're eating breakfast, she knows. Mommy puzzles, she'll say puzzles because she knows puzzles come right after that. It develops self-confidence and early skill acquisition. We know that keeping a balance of high energy play supported by times of quiet activities and alternating those is a key component for developing a schedule. It's wonderful for kids to have that. I can run outside and I can play, but now I'm going to come in and I'm going to sit and read books. This also, you guys, mimics what you guys are doing in the classroom, and it provides them that security of, oh yeah, I did that in preschool. Now I'm doing the same thing at home. This is a time for families to reconnect. I know we joked, with a few of us were in this Zoom meeting before everybody else started, and we were saying, oh my God, you know, it's so nice to talk to somebody outside of your family. But our reality is this is bringing us a lot closer together, and it's helping us reacquaint ourselves with our kids. Our kids spend more time with you all than they spend with us. And that's a working parent's reality. So now parents are getting that opportunity to bond with their child. So providing them with this information on a daily routine and a schedule actually is teaching them what you're doing at school, but how they can do that at home. They can also refocus and see that family time is special. Start to create traditions. Keeping a schedule fosters or gives pride in knowing what they're supposed to be doing. But 2 of the most impactful purposes of creating a daily schedule at home include offering your child the opportunity to get excited about what's ahead, but also provide stability. Remember that we talk a lot about in trainings about intrinsic motivation. If we're intrinsically motivated, we're motivated to participate, to learn, to ask questions. The same thing is relevant at home. But also reminding parents that flexibility is okay. It shouldn't be, it has to be flexible. My goodness, it has to be. A lot of our parents are still working while they have their kids here. Spontaneity and creativity are important. Remaining calm and sensitive and adapting to the child's needs. I'm going to add a little something in here. This is where it's important that you send out self-regulation activities for parents and mindful moments. I know that Therese posted or shared with the teacher mentors, and the teacher mentors shared with you guys the link to Kira Willie's free download for her mindful moments. We know that kiddos are struggling at home socially, emotionally with this shutdown, and providing families with ways to deal with that is very, very important. I got a text today from one of my providers that a parent reached out and said, help, I need help. And thank goodness she did reach out, but she started listing all these challenging behaviors. And this teacher, this was an opportunity for her to say, I've not included this in my virtual classroom. I need to include this. Mindful moments, activities, maybe some read aloud links on YouTube that encourage kids to breathe deeply, to pay attention to their bodies. So getting started, how to set up a daily schedule at home. Establish important times of your day. So we all know typically our kids wake up around the same time. So when will meal times happen? When will nap times happen? And when will bedtime? This affects how your child is going to be able to manage their day. They need to get enough sleep. They need to be on a consistent routine with their sleep pattern. Add a balance of additional activities between the above times of day. So this is where you should be planning an active part of the day followed by quiet times. It's also a great way for you to offer to a parent, when do you have to work? When is your time that you need to sit at your computer where you can't be bugged or bothered? That's your quiet time right there. Add a balance of additional activities between the above times. Oh, I just talked about that, sorry. There are things to consider when supporting a family schedule. Are adults in the home requiring to work? So we talked about that. How many siblings are in the home and what are their ages? So this is something neat that I saw one of my programs do. They posted an activity and they also posted, here's a way if they have an older sibling that they can help them complete this. And I thought that was a really neat balance and kind of took a little bit off the parent's plate, being able to assign an older sibling to help them. Is there a child in the home that's been receiving special services? We are identifying this with a few of our programs that there are some kiddos that have been receiving speech therapy. I have actually just heard last week from one of my programs that one of the speech therapists working with them has actually been doing Zoom calls with some of the kids, which is really exciting. Encourage your families to reach out if they have the contact information to their speech therapist. Absolutely encourage them. I am actually working with Jane Trombley, our speech pathologist, with individual schools. When she knows a specific need that your kiddo has, she can provide some example activities. What is more difficult for her to do is to offer a broad, here's what every kid with a speech delay can do at home. That's a little too broad. So if you do have kiddos that have special needs, reach out to your teacher mentor. We can talk about that and talk about ways to support them. But I think, again, with that demographic, you need to provide a lot of mindful moments and self-regulatory activities, because that's a lot for them to digest. Sending home a visual schedule, I do want to touch base on this, because with my whole chaos that was going on at my house with a new baby and me thinking I am educator of the year, which I'm not, not even the top 10, I all of a sudden had a light bulb that went off that was like, oh my goodness, Hattie needs a visual schedule. So I started taking photos of her and everything she did. Photos of her when I get her out of her crib in the morning. Photos of her changing table, like photos of the potty, because oh yeah, we're doing that too. We're potty training on top of this. Photos of her eating breakfast. What do we do after breakfast? And then lining them up for her. So when she does struggle, we can say, look, remember, we need to come. And she has a little sticker actually that she moves to each one. Providing parents with your visual schedule is a bonus, because kids are used to seeing that. If you have that like in an electronic version, or if you're visiting your classroom and you can snap a photo of it, or make copies and scan it and email it to parents to print, or even better, printing it off and mailing it to all your parents to say, here's our schedule. Do you want to post some of these up? Encourage parents to do that, because that helps children so much during this time. And how fun would that be for a child to see their actual preschool daily routine on their wall? That would be such of a fun connection that they could make between home and school. We would really encourage you to do that. Next slide. And Karen, do we have any questions so far? No, are we good?
No questions. What questions do you have? Does anybody have any comments?
Come on, guys, you know you have them.
You know, I'm gonna pull a Therese and say, I'm very patient.
I can wait as long as you can.
And welcome, Liza.
Does it sound manageable to you? What is being shared? Does it seem manageable so far?
Okay.
Okay, well, I'm just going to take you through this sample daily routine. And I want to keep in mind, when sharing something like this with parents, it's very, very important that you tell them, you don't have to do this exact routine. This is an example, remembering that parents are overwhelmed, that parents are probably still working, or I know we have lots of parents in our KCR4s programs that are essential workers, and there's a lot of stress there. So these are just to share with them components and in a sample of it. The wake and wash, family breakfast. I shared with the teacher mentor team that's something that my daughter and I have always done, is even when she was going to daycare. She's a creature of habit, and family breakfast is the time where we do our planning. That's when I say, Hattie, what's your plan for after breakfast? What do you want to do? What are you going to play with? Which puzzle are you going to choose? When we go outside today, do we want to walk down the driveway? Do we want to go to the pond? Do we want to walk around town? Start that planning process, because then we have it here where it goes right into daily planning. Group learning, free choice play, recall and read alouds, family lunch. Notice how there's a family in front of these meal times. I do want to share something that I saw online that I think is so cool and so fun. It really made me realize that as pre-K teachers, we are constantly trying to build that mealtime talk, aren't we? We're constantly trying to talk during meal times and remind ourselves of that. Now kids are home. That is not something that is ingrained in adults' minds to encourage kids to stop eating and talking. What is typical in a family's house is eat your food. Okay, stop talking, eat your food, pay attention. This would be a really great learning opportunity at home to share parents, maybe some mealtime prompts, or maybe some conversations that you've had with these kiddos in the classroom to encourage that mealtime conversation. Then you have a rest or quiet play, again, more free choice, more recall and read aloud, family dinner, family play, bath, books, and bedtime. So these are some typical times during a family's day, but notice that we put that planning, that free play, and that recall in so that you're giving that familiar schedule to kiddos. Next slide.
Renee, can we also share that we have not assigned times of day
Yes.
as much as we have put a schedule, a routine in place, because everyone's time of day will look different.
Absolutely. That's very good, Lori, that you mentioned that, because even with meal times, that looks different for every family. Some families eat bright and early. Other families are like, nope, we don't eat right away when we wake up. Exactly. So I think we're going to turn it over to Miss Lori.
And before you start, Lori, I wanted to point out what you had written in the chat as well, that we can share this PowerPoint with you at the end. We can email it to you, and so that you have all of this information.
Perfect. We want you to be able to participate actively with us and not worry that you may miss something. So thanks, Renee. There is so much information and there's so much importance into the routine for our children. And I guess my personal share with you tonight is I do not have little people in my home, but I have reacted to having to close the doors of my personal program and keep it running and worry about my family and my children. And the way I have internalized it all is my body is not sleeping. It's not allowing me to sleep. It's not allowing me to rest. And after about week 3, and I was still awake at 5 a.m., 5:30, 6 a.m., I realized I was so out of sync with my own body, and I was letting the trauma that all of our kids are experiencing and our families are experiencing, I was letting that impact my schedule. And I'm not going to say it's been perfect, because 2 nights ago I did not fall asleep the entire night. However, I'm getting better at getting myself up at, maybe not at 7 when I normally would, it might be 9, but getting myself up and spending time for myself, just finding the importance of this daily routine. And I am starting to hear from my providers as well as my families that the children are struggling and they're bored and they're getting naughty. And I go back to, what is your routine? So let's kind of break this down. We're going to break down the day.
And before you say that, Lori, Charmaine did write that she thanks us for being so transparent about how to take care of ourselves. And it's so important to take care of ourselves alongside all of your kiddos that you're doing this virtual learning with.
We love you, Charmaine. It is important. And that is one of the pieces that Karen, Renee, and I, and all the mentors, and actually KCR4s for that matter, our focus has really been on all of you. Our worry has been on you, and the burden that this is placing on all of you with the worry about your own families, the worry about your children, the worry about your physical building, that your school building. And what I know for certain is that every day you all stepped up and you put your personal business to the side to say, I have to be this champion for my school and for my kids. And it does take a toll on us, right? It takes a toll on us. And so, yes, it's so important that we find that balance when we are sharing this information with our families that work for all of you also.
Absolutely. And Stacy, thank you for sharing. She found that the Abide app has been really helpful for her in falling asleep at night. I think we're all having some problems sleeping. That's something that we can all look at.
Yes, I actually use that app, so I can say that it does work.
Cool.
I have used Calm, the app Calm, and if I'm being completely honest, I may have used artificial resources such as melatonin, Tylenol PM, and just staying awake. It's what it is. But today we're going to talk about the importance of that schedule and the routine of it, not necessarily the timing of the hours of the day, but how we can help our families keep our kids used to what they're having. So first thing we do in the morning, we get up and we wake up and we wash. So I call it wake and wash. It normally happens the same time. It's okay if it doesn't, but that's the first thing we do, right? So the time of day isn't as important as the actual activity. So we wake up every day. Encourage your families to follow that routine. Routine is what our kids need and what they crave and what they want from us. But more importantly, it is what is familiar and safe for them. They know that this is what they can expect. And that is what our children need. Those safe places to go. I know what's next. I know what we did before this. So we really want the families to be following that normal routine, right? So we sit down and we have a family breakfast. And again, as Renee shared, that family piece is so important. This is the one opportunity that our families have to say, we don't have to rush out the door. We have to figure out how to rush around the corner to my new in-home office while you rush to the couch to do your thing. Traffic doesn't seem to be so bad this way. So that family piece, getting everybody together, and all of our children plan. They know what it is. And maybe our parents don't. This is our opportunity to share as providers the importance of sitting at the table, like Renee said, and making a plan for the day, talking about it as a family. And we can even encourage those big questions versus all the little questions, and the encouragement versus the praising. Tell me what you plan to do today. What do you plan to do? I think that families will find that their preschoolers in turn will look right back at them and say, you tell me what you plan to do today. That's what they're used to doing. And it might be as simple as offering suggestions, things that you have been doing in your programs. What planning tools did you use in your programs? Did you have little matchbox cards that you moved from friend to friend when it was their time to play? Make your teachings and your supporting of your families familiar to your children, so they in turn can almost in their own way become the teachers to their big people. We're empowering them, right? So it's really important. Excuse me as I touch my face and I shouldn't. It's really important that we give them this time and understand that when they are making their plan, they are planning their day with intentionality, right? And that is what we want them to still have, the intentionality in their play, because play is their work and work is their learning, right? All right, next screen, please. So group learning time. That might be what I call in my program small groups. Your mentors come in, we're supporting your small groups. Small groups can be 2 people, that's a small group. A small group can be your entire family, but this is the one chance that you can really say to your kiddos, guess what? This is the time that we are going to do our work. And you want to be able to encourage the family members to take place in those activities, right? So their work doesn't have to be something that is not manageable for your families. And we never want them to feel like, I don't know what I'm doing, or I'm going to do this wrong. I've heard providers say their families are worried that they're failing their children. They're not failing their children. We're just now going to help them understand the why and ways to help them engage, which really then follows our objectives. So playing a game, playing a simple board game is an amazing group learning opportunity. A lot of our kids never get that with their families, right? They come home from school, they have their dinner, they have their bath, they go to bed. To be able to sit down with your family, with your big person, with your siblings and play a game, and so much learning is taking place. And it's really up to you all as providers if you want to share what some of those objectives can be. It could be as much as simple as they're persisting, they're attending, they're paying attention to what they're doing, they're taking turns, they're sharing, and it just goes on from there depending on the game. Helping families understand that if they have just simple, small items, there are so many objectives that can be gathered. And it's not that we're asking you to gather those objectives necessarily, but we know the intentionality behind it, right? So if we're offering these suggestions, we know our kids are getting what they need. Sorry, one of my 4 dogs is sort of coming around, and I'm sorry if you hear a bark. So providing small things for counting, it can be fruit snacks. We all know they eat fruit snacks because they've come in lunch every day. Goldfish crackers. We want to be really careful not to necessarily provide ideas that involve items, though, that may be hard for our families to be getting right now, right? So many of our families are worrying about where their groceries are going to be coming from. And so to encourage the kids to play with food right now, knowing the demographic of your family may seem a little insensitive to the families. So you just want to be really careful of that. But even little beads or, I mean, anything, Legos, anything like that that you can find. And they can sort and count and classify and make patterns. It's all learning. Those are the things you can do. This is a great time to make a connection between what they said at breakfast time that they were choosing to do for their free choice time. If they say, well, during my free choice time today, I'm going to play with my dolls. Great. How could you incorporate that? Maybe we should make a puppet to talk with your dolls, right? What would that look like? What could you do? The kids are doing problem solving at that point and they're being creative. It's a perfect time to have any type of science discovery kind of things. There are so many things that can be done with things found around the home as far as science, even just as simple as blowing paper across the table, right? So these might be some ideas that you can support your families with. These are things that I can see you then taking maybe each week and saying, have you tried this today during your group time? Songs and figure plays and, those nonfiction books. Sit down and really dig into some of those fun things. These are all wonderful ways to connect your families to that learning piece with your kiddos. Next slide, please. So free choice time, a really important, it's no different whether you're in school or whether you're at home. We want to see our kids having an hour of that uninterrupted play. And sometimes our families might think, oh my gosh, that's so long, they'll get into so much mischief. Well, that's why we have our planning, and that's why we have the intentionality, and that's why we set up our homes so that the kids can have safe opportunities, right? But we want to really encourage the families to gift their children an hour of uninterrupted play. Might mean that the families are also the play pals for that time. Or it could also be an opportunity for a family member to say, this is your time. You made your plan. You said today you planned you were going to go out in the backyard and swing and dig for worms. I'm excited to watch you do that. Boom, there you go. We want it, you want to encourage families to find different areas and different ways that the kids can engage in free play and during their choice time. We want to give clear guidelines for the kids so that they know what the expectations and the rules are. I am a big proponent of having the kids write the rules. So if our families are struggling, this is a perfect opportunity for you to help support the families in saying, in our classrooms, we write our rules together as a class. You can also incorporate that in your homes. Write your family rules. What do your rules look like for your home and for your family? They may be different than what we have in our classrooms, but actually have the preschooler sit down and help with that so you can refer back to it as a parent back and, well, I know our rules said that we were not going to be spitting at each other in our house. Ugh, that's a little rule. The big rule is we're going to be responsible. So we can help our parents understand that the importance of giving those directives and how they should be playing, right? You're going to have sibling nonsense. Everybody does. That's also conflict resolution in our classrooms, just with brothers and sisters. It's okay. I think it's important to let our parents know that if they need to have a unified behavior plan in place in case you have some struggles in the home. And some of our kiddos are currently having both parents, if there are two parents in the home, having both parents in the home, and they're used to being able to ask one parent one thing, and then if they don't like the answer, going to the next parent, right? Well, now you've got to be on the same page because they're going to do the same thing, but it's going to happen at the same time. So having a behavior plan in place will help. It also helps our families to understand that if we do have kiddos that have any type of behavior or learning challenges, it's going to look different for them, what happens at home. And because we're in school so much of our day, they may not see that our brother or sister gets to have longer time to read their story or gets to have a big person read the story because they're not able to do that themselves yet. And that kind of causes some conflict back and forth as well. And we really want to encourage our parents to make sure that the kids have enough opportunity for play spaces, right? And a play space is 3 puzzles. A swing is 1 play space. 3 books is considered 1 play space. And I don't know that parents always understand what a play space is. A box of Legos, amazing. But it's a limited choice during choice time if someone tires of them in 30 minutes. But if there's ample opportunity for them to have play spaces, that will help with some of the behaviors, right? I saw some questions. Did we have some questions about the choice?
We have a couple of comments actually about the last slide about group play, and it looks like Renee found a great way to get her chores done and sorting laundry and socks from her kids.
Sometimes.
That's super smart, Renee. Also, Dawn suggested, this is an excellent idea as well, collecting things outside like sticks, rocks, and leaves for them to count, sort, and pattern. That's an excellent idea. Yeah, very easy. Everybody has it.
Yes. And these are things we would be doing in our classroom, right? But they do not require our families to have additional tools. And I think that's what's intimidating sometimes to our families. I don't have all the things you have to teach in the classroom. So great ideas. Thank you, guys.
Okay. It says that if you have a parent that has limited space, teachers could offer creative ideas such as doing puzzles under the kitchen table or making a fort with couch cushions. So yeah, being mindful of the space that the parents have and how they can manage that space, maybe with, more than one kid.
I don't know if any of you have ever tried this in your classrooms, but I know that I have seen children spend hours laying on their backs with a piece of paper taped underneath the table. They are coloring upside down. They will spend hours that way. So yes, thanks.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing as well, Stacy, making a mandala.
Oh, yes. Okay, next slide, please. So recall and read aloud. We know the importance of recalling and of read aloud. Recalling is helping to build that motor memory, right? That memory of what did I do, and being able to then share their days and begin to be able to recall activities and events and things in their lives. So it's still important that we encourage parents to have their children recall. And this is where you guys have to really help support them, because they may not understand it and they may not find the need in it or the why behind it. But recall promotes language, and it plays a key role in facilitating memory in young children. So when we aren't getting, when we aren't getting that, we're kind of impairing our children in that brain development. Recall should include details, including but not limited to who, what, where, and when. That's tough. That's tough for a preschooler to get all of that in. But when you're home with your families, the who and the what and the where and the when are pretty much right there with you. So it's a perfect time to get all of those questions in on a recall. But it's also important for us to share that with our parents and our families so that they understand this is what we're looking for recall and why, right? Read aloud and recall are quiet activities. We've just had an hour of choice time. It could have been building with Legos. It could have been swinging. It could have been jumping outside on a trampoline. Oh my goodness, I wish I owned stock in trampolines because I think everyone's getting them. Now it's time for our bodies to rest. It's so important that our families understand the balance in their day between busy activities and quiet activities. So you bring them together and you have a read aloud. It's the transition from a body busy time of day into a quiet and reflective time. Read aloud, a morning read aloud should be just a fun story, and it may focus on one of our learning objectives. You know, is it a rhyming tale? Are you reading the Dust Bunnies? Are you storytelling? Is it one that has a great fable? You know, and then you could talk about what a fable is. Help the parents understand that salient print. Salient print are the big letters and the changes in the print within a story. And if that's a concept that is new to many of us, then I recommend maybe look that up and kind of get an idea of what that salient print is. This can be a focused time. Your kids have just had an hour of busy time, right? But it should be for enjoyment, right? Just read those stories. We've had a great day, read those stories, nothing more, just for enjoyment. Okay, next slide, please. So family lunch, again, like Renee said, notice the focus on family. This is our time. It's equally important for families to take that break too. I am finding it very easy to work from 9 in the morning till 9 at night. And then I realize I've not had a thing to eat today. I'm starting to feel like a teacher. When did I go to the bathroom? Did I get to have my lunch? Are there any other adults around? You know, we also need to have that time. So I think it's important to make sure the families understand and celebrate that. Children can help prepare their lunches. What I know about preschoolers, they can spread peanut butter and jelly. They can open those refrigerator doors. They can make patterns while setting the table, right? They can practice counting and classifying the different elements of the meal. If a family's having one of those little mixed fruit cups, it's a great conversation starter to say, ooh, I see one red cherry in there. Tell me what you see. Start that conversation. And they're starting to look for shapes and colors and all those concepts just by having lunch together. And really just encourage them to engage and support their family conversations together. It's things that they might feel a little uncomfortable at first, but I think it's a really good way for families to connect, right? Along with them setting up their lunch, they're used to this at school too. They've got to clean up after that meal, not get up and run away. So I think sometimes our parents don't really understand what our kids are capable of, because we do, because we see it every day, right? We always say, yep, come on back, you've got a mess to clean up. And the parents are always amazed when they say, I didn't know they could pour from a pitcher. Well, they can. You got to try it. So encourage the families to let the kids take an active part in clearing the table, washing the dishes, making sure that the house is ready for the next part of their day. Those are all really important pieces of kiddos learning to take care of their own needs. They're going to be doing when they come back to their preschools. They're going to be doing when they go into the big schools. And it's a life skill, right? I help my family. I am promoting that community. I'm important. I matter. I have a place in my family. Next slide, please.
So I'm going to pause right there and just make a couple of comments. It looks like you've all got some really great ideas on some group learning activities and choice time activities that you're sharing. And this is why we wanted to do this, so we can compile all of these great ideas. Dawn mentioned that, you know, you can have activities with large pieces of paper with wrapping paper.
Mm-hmm.
Always had wrapping paper in my classroom. For those fine motor skills of cutting and taping too. I mean, we play that game, find something in a house and find 15 things in the house just to wrap.
And then you get the chute. You could make a chute with the leftover tube.
With the tube, that's right. There was also an idea on an indoor scavenger hunt about find something bigger than your hand or something soft or something smaller than your thumb.
Yes. And that's it. I think that our families are potentially maybe overthinking this when they're thinking, I can't keep up with all of this schoolwork. When in actuality, giving them a list of ideas, these are all perfect examples of 10 minutes together. Yes, find something that is red and yellow, right? Not just something red and something yellow. Find something red and yellow. It can be as simple as that, absolutely. And there's so much intentional teaching that they're doing, but I'm not sure parents always understand or feel that. These are fabulous ideas. Please keep sharing them.
Absolutely. And I think you shared, Lori, in the beginning that these are almost like challenges instead of lessons. And they're really fun when you say, oh, this is a virtual challenge of going and finding something in your house. Charmaine also mentioned she's done a read aloud and talked about a beginning, middle, and end. Yeah, you can integrate all sorts of different ideas.
Yes. My preschoolers, we started this out with challenges. And I will tell you, at 60 years old, this old girl stood on her head because I was challenged to stand on my head. It is the only time I will ever do that again in my entire lifetime. But yes, simple challenges to keep them engaged, and the families doing that too. And what I'm finding is that a lot of our providers have shared that their kids have had so much fun engaging their families. I challenge you to run around the house. Okay, go. You know, it can really be that simple. I challenge you to go find something that will sink and float in the bathtub tonight. You know, just really fun things. Today I issued my students a challenge, and I told them that if every one of them tried it, that they could choose whether Mr. Craig squirted me with a hose of cold water, threw a pie in my face, or got to dye my hair purple, knowing full well they won't all try it. However, I did a song that had hand rhythms with it, and that's all it has to be, just something fun and intentional for them. Yes, keep these ideas coming.
Absolutely. Kathleen mentioned that learning from everyday activities and having conversations, just utilizing this family lunch to have those conversations or to make food. I see Stacy mentioned juicing, you know, doing something just different or out of the ordinary that you might want to teach your kiddo.
Yes.
I do want to just interject and say one thing, because Laura, you made a really great comment when I was doing my part of the presentation about this is a time when what we don't want to do is fall back on dittos. And a lot of times parents fall back on that because that's all they know. They know these worksheets and these workbooks. So this is your time, teachers, and I'm so glad you said that, Lori, because this is your time that you can connect these everyday activities and these rich conversations with, if you're using creative curriculum, your learning objectives or high scopes key indicators. This is your time that you can show families that learning is happening in these everyday times of the day.
Absolutely. And even in, like we're talking about juicing, think of the motor skills that are being developed just squeezing the fruits themselves. And I saw Shelley commented that using your Mighty Minutes, absolutely. Just a quick, simple little something that has that intentionality piece. But what I also want us to be cautioned about is even some of our families have difficulty with literacy, right? And so if we are providing those everyday activities, we don't have to worry that a family might say, I can't read this. I don't understand what they're asking me to do. And I think we always want to be really careful of that as well. So yeah, these are great ideas, guys. Keep them coming.
One more thing, Lori, because you just jogged my memory, and I'm so glad you brought that up about parents having literacy issues. I did see a program recently that does have some parents that have been upfront about having some literacy issues as adults. And so what the teachers did was they recorded themselves doing an everyday activity to show, instead of sending it out in an email or sending it out in a text. And they got so much positive feedback because the kids were so excited to see those teachers doing it with their own children. So that's just an idea that I thought I would pass along.
That's a fabulous idea. Thanks, Renee. Okay, so we also know that it is really important, not only for our kiddos, but our families, our adults in the home, to have rest or quiet time. If a family member is still working from home and trying to teach, I mean, everybody is just struggling with this. I think we all need to take time in our day to just set life aside and do something for ourselves. Guessing not many of us in here tonight have done much of that. Maybe we consider this a little bit of self-care because we're with each other. But it's really, really important because the kids are used to having that in their all-day programs. They are used to this quiet time. And when parents say they don't nap, well, okay, but they're used to having that quiet time, right? So quiet time should take place at the same spot every day. Consistency, consistency, consistency. Don't let them say, I want to lay on the couch today, or can I go in the basement on my fort? You're kind of encouraging them to see it as an opportunity to not rest versus this is where we go to rest. This is what we do. So try, encourage the families to find the same spot every day. And quiet time is just that. It's time to support a body at rest. Books and technology can be useful during this time. A lot of our families are sharing that they feel guilty about the amount of time that their children are spending on devices. I get it. And the reality is it might just have to happen for a little bit. However, they don't get those devices at school either. So once we get them into that understanding of saying, just like at school, we're gonna lay on our mat, on our blanket, wherever that happens to be. Would you prefer to have books today or puzzles? Give them choices and help the families understand that when they do provide choices for their children, they're empowering their children to say, I'm going to be okay with what I pick. But if you tell me what you want me to do, I don't want any part of it. So it's always really good to help our parents understand providing choices for the kids will kind of take a little bit of that battle away of them not wanting to nap. If your kiddo is not used to napping, you might want to set a timer. A kitchen timer is great. If they have a visual timer, I don't know that many families have these at home, but time timer is amazing because they have a visual that they can watch. And when your time is up, you can get up from your quiet time, but this is your time. And I think it's up to the families to kind of determine how long that time is, what works in their schedules, right? We really want it to be what works well for their schedules. Let's see, set a clear expectation, right? It's just like putting them to bed. The expectation is we will all have quiet time. I'm going to have quiet time. You're going to have quiet time. This is what we do. And I think that's why it's so important to have that maybe a visual. I also support having a visual schedule at home for the kids so that they can see it. That is what they're used to. All of our classrooms have those. And that is where the kids are going to start to succeed when they go, this is familiar. Oh, I remember when I had to do this. Oh, that's right. We have to recall. Oh, that's right. They're going to feel that familiarity and the connectivity back with you as their providers. And that's also going to help the families, make sure that the kids are doing what they should be doing. So set those clear expectations. Oh, there is a time timer up, Natalie? That's amazing. See, I learned something today. Probably more than one thing. So then again, you wake up, bam, we're at it again. It's time for free choice. Adults should revisit any guidelines or rules. It's really important to make sure that they set those, especially for kiddos that need them. Pretty sure all of us are familiar with at least one or several children in our programs who you might be a little worried about right now, thinking, how are they doing with free range and without the parameters that we've worked so hard to help support them with behavior plans and things. This is why this piece is important. The parents going back and saying, okay, now this is your time. You get to pick what you do. However, these are the rules. We are respectful. Whatever those rules are, the parents should revisit them every single day, just like we do in our classrooms, Adults can make new play spaces available. If maybe in the morning you decided that they were going to play in the living room, maybe you can say, guess what? I think today's outside time, or today's free choice time this afternoon should be outside. It's a beautiful day outside. Let's do it. You get a learner that says, I don't want to go outside. You have recess at preschool. I know that every day at preschool you went outside. That's our rules, right? And depending on those family dynamics, adults can request the play take place within a certain area of the home so the parent can be with them. Again, we know our parents are working from home. Many of you are parents with children still at home trying to do all this. So kind of put yourself in the place of your preschoolers and think to yourself, okay, I've got 3 girls right here that I have to keep quiet while I'm doing this work as well. What does that look like? Where will they be safe? It's okay to say your choice time this afternoon needs to be here. As important as it is in our classrooms, our preschoolers need that warning that it's almost time to pick up. What does that look like? They're used to that from us. It's predictable, it is safe, and it's expected. That's what this is about, being predictable, being safe, and being expected. Our kids are expecting to know when they have to pick up and that they do have to pick up. I don't know that I've walked into any classrooms and someone has said, oh, we're not going to pick up today. We're just going to leave it for tomorrow. It doesn't happen, right? So we know our kiddos can do it. But when you hear parents say they won't pick up their toys, well, let's give them that 5-minute warning and let the kids pick it out. What does that look like? Put some music on. There are pickup songs all over. There are YouTube songs, Apple Music, wherever, to find cleanup songs for families too. And all the learning tools, that's what I call them, but their toys should be picked up. They should be picked up and put away before dinner time. And I think that is a rule just like at school. Before we go outside, before we end our day, our classroom is clean and it's ready for tomorrow. The same expectation can be at home, and it will help the kids support that what is expected, what is safe, right? Okay, I see lots of things coming in, Karen. Do you want to address some of them?
Yeah, so Stacy, do you want to talk to your 10 points here?
Yes.
That would be great. Oh, okay, I can hear you now.
Okay, I don't know why, but I'm not connected anymore. Do I just go on to Zoom again?
You're connected, we see you.
I just don't see you.
Oh,
Uh-oh. I don't know what I did.
So it looks like you wrote 10 things to say to reduce conflict.
Yes, I need to look at those again before I talk on them. Oh, dear Bessie. Let's see. Oh, man.
This is what quarantining does to you, Stacy.
I know it. Darn.
and this is what TV now looks like for KC4s. We do what we can do the best we can.
That's right.
I don't know how to see you again.
Um,
Should I try to get off and then come back on?
Try clicking on your chat. And that
All
will
I say is
pop up your chat so you can see the 10.
all I see is Zoom.
That's it? Okay, so you, I think you minimized it. So go and click on that Zoom icon at the bottom and open up a different link.
Oh,
So I can make, I can talk to some of them. It says, let's both take a 10-minute timeout. So these are,
oh, I can see you now.
okay.
it worked.
Hello. I know in my school, the parents always ask me, how do you get your child, how do I get my son or daughter to do what you do in school? And I found these things, I don't know where I found it and kind of tweaked it, but it's just a great way to involve the kids with conflict resolution. So we're not always telling them what to do, but involving them in the decision. So those are just some suggestions that I've used and they've worked.
So would you be willing to share some of those?
Sure. So you mean how I've used it or?
Or maybe share a couple of the talk points on that?
Sure. Let me find
Oh,
them.
I think you put them on there. I got it. I didn't see
I
them.
just put them all on there.
Yep. I think they're all on there for everybody to see.
Okay, perfect.
Great. Thank you for sharing, Stacy.
You know,
And
while I'm thinking about it, with Stacy making that suggestion, I did forget to mention something earlier, and I think this would be a good time. So Stacy mentioned some conflict resolution strategies. One of the things that a program and I have been talking about is in the event that this happens again in the fall, how do we get ahead of the game a little bit? And one of the things we decided was like conflict resolution steps and strategies to avoid conflict, having like a digital file of that. And at the beginning of the year, creating packets for parents ahead of time that are like send home packets in the event that this happens. Here are your conflict resolution cards. Here are your daily routine cards that you can post up. Here is a stop and clean up sign that you can use, or a 5 more minute warning sign, but kind of having a disaster prepared kit for these parents for in the event that we go to this is what you could use at home. And I thought that program had a great idea doing that and kind of staying ahead of the game.
Absolutely. And it's like Kathleen had it in the group chat as well, using visuals with steps on how to complete tasks. Just like we would have for our outside time gear. Maybe your parents might enjoy that, or maybe in the fall, if our learning looks different, right? You'd have that in your toolbox.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we go back to, again, having a recall of your afternoon choice time, and it always comes right after choice time because you may not be right there. The parents may not be right there with their learners. So tell me about your time. What did you do? And you just recall in the same way that you did. If you need ideas for ways to recall, if you Google plan, do, review through HighScope, you will get a laundry list of ideas of ways to plan and recall. And even just if you haven't ever gotten that, I recommend that you pull it up. I bet there's 4 or 5 pages, Renee, aren't there, of ideas of different
Yes.
ways to plan and read.
There are, and there's great little prompts that you could share with parents and even some higher level questioning.
Yes. And so you just Google plan, do, review, and it will all pull up there. So the read aloud can be the same story that you had in the morning. The fun part of that is the kids are expecting that. They're used to having stories read more than one time, or they should be used to having stories read more than one time. So the first read aloud through is just that enjoyment. The second read aloud then can take on more of the intentional literacy, scaffolding their literacy, encouraging them to act out the story from the morning. Ask them questions about the story as you read the familiar text. So we know that to be dialogic reading, but does a parent understand dialogic reading? Probably not, right? And that's okay. But if we share with our families, as you're holding your virtual classrooms, share with them how to actually do that. I think it's helpful because you are teaching them how to do that. Okay, great question. I saw that.
Oh, yes. There was, Stacy had asked, has anyone scheduled a question and answer with parents and no kids?
I did, Stacy. Okay. So actually, I am having what I call parent check-ins. And in fact, when I'm done tonight, I go right into one. And what I did is I took this PowerPoint and I am sharing this PowerPoint just like we're doing now with my families to help them kind of understand how to create those schedules. And my families were very receptive to it. I found that a good part of the time we spent was just the families sharing how overwhelmed they are with it all. And I said, then take this information, put it on your table, and when you're ready, reach out or just take one of these parts of the day. You know, take one part of the day and try and get some routine with that. So you are welcome, as far as I'm concerned, and I'm sure Renee and Karen and the other mentors feel the same way, to take this document and share it with your parent group. Mine were very appreciative because they didn't really understand a lot of what we do, which is our job. We make it look like we're just playing, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So,
Lori, I'm glad that,
oh,
I'm sorry about that, Karen. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm glad, Lori, that you mentioned that about your personal story, that you are actually doing that and that you do that check-in, because I do have on my notes here, I was going to mention at the end, but now seems to be a good time the program should be checking in with parents as well. How are you doing? And to mention that Erica Hamlet, our KCR4s staff member, is still working with families right now. She is still connecting with families that need food, that need diapers, that maybe need some emotional support, some services. So those types of services the KCR4s has always provided for you is still there. If you have families in need, make sure you reach out to your teacher mentor and we can connect Erica with those families. But a really, really important point that Lori made was, I heard her say, I check in with them, and a lot of them are overwhelmed. That is so important right now for you all to do those check-ins with the parents.
And for our GSRP programs, that is one of the expectations. Kathleen can also talk to this from GSRP, is that parent piece is so important. If you felt you know this would be helpful in sharing with your families and could schedule a Zoom or however you're communicating with your families, share this information with them, that I would believe that would count, right? And I haven't had them weekly, Stacy. This is the first week I did them because I started getting a lot of parents coming to me individually. And I have 62 students. And so I was getting like 20 to 25 emails a day. And then they'd say, did you get my email I sent you yesterday? Yes, but. So I found this was I felt like they were needing me. And I thought, this is my way to think, how do I support them? And what I actually found is my families need me more than my kids do. Does that make sense? Our kids are doing okay. It's the parents who are struggling. So it ended up being 2.5 hours last night because we just had tears and mommies who felt like they were failing because they aren't doing this and their kids aren't doing this and their kids are being sassy according to the parents and they're just acting out and they're not going to bed. And, you know, sometimes I think we are their professionals and we oftentimes are the counselor to our parents, right? And the parents trust us. They trust us with their children. And so to see our faces saying to them, you are going to be okay. I am here to support you. Let's make a few adaptations to our routine of the day and see how that helps. And I really think that that is the best gift we can give to our children is supporting their parents.
Absolutely. And it looks like, Shelley, I'm going to unmute you. It says you have weekly check-ins as well.
Yes.
How is that going?
Just like Lori stated, GSRP classrooms have to do a weekly check-in, and they provided us with the forms, the spreadsheets, questions that we could ask the families if they need anything. So we got that last week, but before that, we were checking in with parents before we got the GSRP information. Yeah, we're doing that. And then with our program with Dr. Eccles and I and our team, actually, we're doing online learning as well. There are some families that have not connected that way yet, but we are sending packets. So we're doing multiple things to reach out to our family because everybody is not comfortable with the online learning. So.
And that goes back, thank you. That goes back to
sharing, Shelley.
Piece that we have to meet our families where they need us. And if technology is not where they need to be met, we have to figure out how to get to them and support them without overwhelming ourselves as teachers and as mothers and as women. We have to save enough for ourselves too, right? So thank you, ladies. Yes, this is all great. That's why I really like this forum for a PD, because we get to share and interact where normally we wouldn't, right? So make this second read aloud really super intentional. Model how to read from left to right, but our parents need us to show them that, right? They may not understand the intentionality of why you move your finger under that page. It's our job to help them understand that this is an important part of their child's day. And this is what we've been doing as their educators. And so this is how, it's as simple as this. This is how they can become intentional teachers for their children as well. And to point out the words that rhyme, that begin the same, and then go on those letter hunts in your house. The whole environmental print, that's like a favorite of the kids because that's what they learn. Where can you find letters in your house? Here's a box of Cheerios. Yes, look at all those letters. Where else can you find numbers? Just bring that piece in of their everyday life because it's really, really intentional. And the families might opt to just introduce a new story as well, just one that the kids love to have read. That's most important. Kids should be having 20 minutes of reading a day, like people reading to them. Me, I could sit for hours and do it, but yes. So, all right. Oh, this is the time of day that the parents are living for. Bath, books, and bedtime. They've had their supper. Oh, wait, I think we're a little out of order because we have to do family dinner. Did we miss family dinner? There it is. Oh, family dinner. Okay, sorry.
A little out of order. That's okay.
Little glitches here. It's okay. So family dinner is family time. In my house, doesn't matter what your day looks like, we come together at family dinner time. A little hard when you have older kids that start into sports, but you keep that tradition as long as you can. There's so much intentionality and connectivity for our kids during this time. They're tired, so they're likely to maybe even be able to focus a little bit more, pay attention. Something that I have done in my family from the time Mandy could talk, we did roses and thorns, and we did it at the dinner table, and every day has something beautiful, and every day has something that didn't go so well or kind of prickly. That's the thorn. So we take turns going around the dinner table and we share, what was your rose today? What was your thorn? And it focuses on, yes, we recognize that maybe you had trouble. Maybe you got really angry at mommy today because she wanted to read to you and you didn't want to read. But my rose for the day is that you and I got to read together. So it's taking something that may be a less than positive situation and putting a positive spin on it. If that's something that you want to share with your families, it just is a great way to connect, to scaffold on that as educators, but we don't have to overwhelm our parents. I always try to take then what was the thorn of today and challenge the kids to make it their rose of tomorrow. So if today their thorn was that they didn't get to go outside and play, that's a big thorn for a little person. So then tomorrow their rose should be, I went outside to play. Does that make sense? So it's trying to take something that was a challenge for the kids and help them, support them to get there. But it's also important to help our families be really honest and transparent with their children to say, well, my thorn today was that when it was time for our learning time, we all struggled. It was hard for us to pay attention. But my rose is that we sat down and we read the most beautiful story and you snuggled in my lap. And so then that challenge for the parents or for the big people is, how do I connect with my learner so that tomorrow when I want them to be doing something intentional, going on a scavenger hunt or whatever it happens to be, they find it fun. So what my idea of fun is could be very different from theirs. The more movement you can give them, the more fun it is. So if I sit down and say, I have a tray, the what's missing from our mindful minutes, right? Or intentional teaching cards. You put a bunch of items on a tray, you cover it with a blanket, and you play what's missing. I think that game is glorious. My kids can't stand it at school. They'd rather play nothing, nothing, something, where you shake your hand, nothing, nothing, something, and you're holding a toothbrush. If it's not fun for them, you're going to get that pushback. So roses and thorns, I just love them. Offer all family members time to recall. So you're teaching your big people to share their day as well. I think sometimes we lose sight of the fact that we're hearing our kids talking, but are we really listening to what they're telling us? Right? So let me say that again. We're hearing what our kids are telling us, but are we listening to what they're saying? The same goes true for them. We want to teach them how to really listen and hear what someone is saying. So we want them to be respectful for us as well. I recall today I went outside and I stomped in puddles. I may have done that today. And that connects some conversation for them too, right? Ask your family members to share one thing that they learned today. There is a learning opportunity every moment. You don't even have to be looking for them, but if you intentionally stop and ask the kids, tell me one thing you learned today. And they sit and they think about it for a minute. You might offer the idea as the parent to say to your child, I learned today that if you open a book upside down, you can't read the words. It might be as simple as that. And then the kids might say, I learned today that if you don't pick up your toys, mom doesn't let you have a snack. Yep, you learned something new today. It can be as simple as that, but there are learning opportunities. Get the kids thinking cognitively about what they're learning. Begin making time for the family playtime. So this is another important piece, that family time. Once dinner is done, just like lunch, they have the capacity to clean it up too. I think a lot of times we know it's easier to not necessarily have them there. However, we all have dressed an entire classroom of preschoolers. It might take half an hour to start, but we make progress. Encourage your families to engage their children also in this work, because they are intentionally supporting the learning of their child. And work as a family to clear the table, right? Okay, the next slide that comes up should be family playtime.
It is, and Kathleen just mentioned, just as we as teachers do this, we need to help our parents understand that children's interests need to be considered as much as possible.
Oh, I love that.
Makes progress. That's very true.
That is such an important statement because so many people say practice makes perfect. There is no perfect. There is no perfect. Oh, I love practice makes progress. Okay, so we're kind of getting to the end of our day and everyone's thinking, we've made it this far. Family playtime. You know, this is time for big people and preschoolers and everyone in between. Put the work away. Have a family dance party. Play instruments. And if you don't have instruments, guess what? Pots and pans and spoons make great instruments. Rice in jars with lids make shakers. This is a great time to together have some family fitness. Go for a walk. Get on those bikes as a family. Family yoga, great for calming those little bodies down. And board games. You know, there are some fun and simple games beyond chutes and ladders. But if the families don't have games at home, Simon says, perfect. Or nothing, nothing, something. Games that they're familiar with. You know, you can offer suggestions to your families, but something that just connects that family, right? Okay, next slide, please. Oh, this is our favorite one. Bath, books, and bedtime. You know, yes, it's been a long day and the kids need time for their bodies to just quiet and calm. Some families have bedtime routines. Some families, let's be honest, at the end of a day, they are so glad that no one is bleeding, nothing is broken, and they're all in the same house together. So we just have to gift them that grace. I love gift of grace. I'm just saying, Stacey. we have to gift that grace for them to be able to say, you did it, you made it through this day. If the families are not following a nightly routine, and I think this is such an important piece, it's a great opportunity for us as their educators to say, we know through studies and through research that spending quiet time listening to your body, being mindful, listening to quiet music, having a bath, reassures our kids that they are safe, they are loved, they're going to be okay, and tomorrow starts another new great adventure. And I think that is so important to help our families create a really strong beginning of their day and a really strong end of their day. And eventually, I think the pieces will come together parts of day by parts of day by parts of day. Make sense? So now is a time where we get to say to you, you guys have been amazing. This is Renee's part. My job here is done.
I did notice, and this is where technology has failed us, we did a run through, Karen, Lori, and I earlier today, and all of Allie's information was there in our PowerPoint, and now it's not. And so what we're going to make sure we do is we will make sure not only is the PowerPoint emailed to you, but Allie's document where she's worked so hard on to outline and give you descriptions of the different technology platforms that you can use, we'll make sure that you all get that. We want to make sure that we say that. These are some great resources that we have found. We didn't want to overwhelm you, but there are some great resources on positive strategies for families. That document's really fun because it's very visual, and I have found that parents need that visual. I think Kathleen mentioned it, pictures, symbols, showing them what we're trying to get across here. So that's a really good document to send out. And then the next one is how to use visual schedules with your child. And that kind of outlines with parents the 5 more minutes to play, the stop and clean up, and then why we do visuals. I listed Allie's information because, again, she has so graciously offered to be tech support for you guys on any of the outline or the online platforms that she has created for you in that document. I also listed, if you're a creative curriculum user, they have Reading Rosie, and high scope users have Core 360. These are different components of these curriculums that is new that is designed just for this situation that we have now. And it is a plethora of knowledge. There are just sheets after sheets after sheets of learning opportunities at home and activities that you can just print off or email parents. One of the biggest things that I love about these is if you're a high scope user, you could use any of the Reading Rosies. Now, I believe Reading Rosie, you have to be a TS Gold subscriber. Is that correct, Karen? Marie? Right. Okay. So for high scope Core 360, you can actually, anybody can go on there and you can become a free member for that. But they're very broad activities that any curriculum could use. I really like that. And they're very big on using household items for these. So I wanted to point that out. One thing I did not mention earlier that I wanted to just put a little bee in all of your ear, if you are, I know GSRP is, but if you are planning to do an end of the year conference, which we would highly encourage you doing via the phone, via Zoom, revisiting that checkpoint 2 data that you worked so hard on and providing parents with some learning opportunities at home that support those goals so that kiddos can continue that throughout the summer. But also, could you find out for the KC Ready 4s, make sure that you are asking parents where their kiddos are going to kindergarten, because we do keep track of that data. So I just wanted to make sure that I said that, but we are so grateful for you all. Karen, are we opening up? I can't remember our meeting. Are we opening up to questions right now, or?
Yeah, so actually I thought that we could open up the floor to have everybody share comments or questions that they'd like to share. I know we have one more slide that we wanted to look at, and it's Lori Craig's information.
Oh, yes, thank you.
You want to hit this, and then I'll take the PowerPoint down.
Yeah, so we want to thank you, obviously, for coming here and taking time out of, I know we all joke about how we don't have a busy schedule, but as a teacher mentor team, we've all talked about how much more busy we feel, and I know the pre-K teachers feel while you're at home. Our days are going so much faster now, so you take time away from your families. We appreciate that. If you have further questions and you are still meeting with your teacher mentor, make sure that you ask and you meet with your teacher mentor to ask. But Lori Craig has very graciously offered out her email, that if you would like to email her, you could also email her. But I know some of the teacher mentors are still doing mentoring Zoom sessions. Feel free to ask your mentor if you have further questions. Does anybody have questions right now? Raise your hand or
raise your hand. We can unmute you, or if you have a comment, I know that you've been starting the online learning already. So if you have a comment or advice, let us know.
I would like to add that if you are not a creative curriculum teacher or teacher program, I can also get you some of the Rosie components. But you also, if you are using TS Gold, go into your curriculum, and there are games that you can print off, and all of them are there in addition to the intentional teaching card. So if you have the digital resources, there are games there. If you don't, I can print those off also, and I can email them to you if those are things you would like to have. So, and I just wanted to say, I really am so excited to think of the possibility of how difficult this has been for learning for all of us. Think of the kindergartners that we are sending to the big school, because we are now so empowering our parents, and they're going to do this all summer long, right? Where before they would say, maybe school is out and we go. So thank you. Yeah, and let's open it for questions.
This is jogging my memory all over the place. Now I'm glad you said that about TS Gold, because there is going to be an email going out to providers soon. So I want to preface, if you're a high scope user, High Scope has very kindly offered to do a free Zoom training that goes a little bit farther than what their online webinars go to in regards to the family engagement section of CORE. So if you are interested in that, I know, send your email to Therese, and at this point I'm working with Holly Delgado at High Scope. We're just waiting to see who wants to do it and when works best for people, but it's a great way. You won't get any type of certificate, but it is a way to kind of dive into that component of Core Advantage.
So how can we help support you with your virtual learning and your virtual classrooms?
Carolyn, you have a question?
Yes, I do. Not being the lead teacher, I was just wondering how I could reach out to my children because I miss them all so much. And would it even be appropriate?
You know, I think you should talk to Stephanie about that, but knowing I've had conversations with Stephanie, and I can tell you right now, she would love that you want to do that.
Okay.
Because I think right now, directors in general are trying to not overwhelm their staff, and they're
Okay.
afraid to ask more of them because everybody's going through anxiety. So I think that's wonderful, Carolyn, and you know what? Your families would be so touched that you did that. I am certain that Stephanie would give you a means to contact them, whether it be email addresses are always an easy way. If some parents don't have email, you can still, parents can do Zoom on their phone. Some of you might be doing Zoom right now on your phone, but I think a lot of people don't realize that if you don't have a computer, you can still do it. So I would encourage, whether it doesn't matter if you're the lead teacher or not, and I'm sure Karen would appreciate that as well, that, you know, somebody's willing to do that in this stressful time.
I am. I talk to all of them.
Yes.
And I also think that now that we know that you're tech savvy, you know, come on, girl, I'm telling you, I'm so proud of you. This is the time for you to maybe, do you have class Facebook pages? Do you, is that something your programs have thought about and set up? And if you do, it's an amazing way for the kids to get to see all of you. I know that Natalie and her teaching partner, Chaz, have been doing YouTube Read Aloud stories and Facebook pages, etc. So they're both connecting as a team to the kids, and I think the kids need to see each and every one of you. Each one of you.
Stephanie was definitely going to have us do a read aloud, but I'd like to just speak to all my people.
Absolutely. And I know your situation's a little different, Carolyn, with you guys needing to ask the school for, I think you guys have to get permission for things, but the school systems right now, they're in this too. They're way more in depth in this than we are. And so I'm certain that you'll get approval for doing whatever, but I have even had teachers that have said, you know what, I have a couple kiddos that were really struggling when we left and struggling now, and they're just doing FaceTime with them. And I think that's so adorable. And some of the kids I know are even, they're using Kids Messenger. There's a Kids Messenger that I didn't know this until my niece started messaging me during all this. I'm like, what is this thing coming up on my phone? But kids can message now, and they can do it on a notebook. Because I have gotten about 50 emojis of my niece with like cat faces and giraffes and things like that she's messing around with. But that's another option. Kids Messenger.
But they can hunt you down, and they will send you things for hours. So I had to take myself off of that app because
that's what happened to
Mommy
me.
know you're calling me right now. I had one of them say, I'm just talking to my humans. Oh, well, I prefer to be a giraffe and go back to sleep. I don't know, something that wasn't a human.
Oh, wow.
There are a lot of ways to connect with our kids. I think the face-to-face is what they crave. They love getting mail, things like that, but to see your faces.
Oh, yeah.
For me, just to see your faces, I'm like, oh my gosh, I just want to reach through because, imagine what our kids are feeling. You know, they're the people that I love and I trust. And, Mom isn't good at this stuff, they're thinking that.
And there's also a lot of parents right now. I know I even have friends that have mentioned like, oops, I messed up. I let my child watch the news. And we all know what the news is saying right now about deaths and grandparents. And when kids can see you that you're okay, and to hear that reassurance that we're all going to be okay, everybody's still safe, we're still healthy, I think that speaks volumes to them and actually will trickle on over into their challenging behavior at home.
Here's also something to think about as you're moving forward with your virtual classrooms. The state of Michigan has now determined that all teachers will be wearing masks, right? And I think to myself, wow, we spend so much of our day with our eyes, with our mouths, with our smiles, with our kiddos. How is that going to impact them when they can't see this much of us? So this is also kind of a great opportunity to, before they get into an environment, because they trust us and we are their safe people. And next year they're going to the big schools and they're going to have new teachers and new friends and new spaces. We have an opportunity as the people who are safe to them. We have the opportunity to put a face mask on ourselves and talk with them and say, is this silly? Look, it's still me under here. Show me. Have you got something? You can even do something like this. So I'm sitting here with this. I'm thinking of as I'm talking. Do you see me? Can you see me if I put these on my glasses? You can't, but it's still me. We can engage with our kids this way through technology because we are still safe to them and we are still someone that they love and they trust. Where come next year, it's starting over. And I feel horrible for all the kindergarten teachers next year who have kiddos. Well, all of us, let's just face it, all of us, because we don't know what it's going to look like. But I do think it's so important for you all to make those virtual connections, if at all possible.
Yeah, excellent point, Lori. Thank you. Anybody else? Stacy.
Lori, I just have a quick question.
Sure.
When you scheduled your Q&As with your families, how much lead time did you give? A week or a couple days?
They only had a couple days.
Okay.
Only
And
because
did you do it at night?
I did do it at night. And I kind of said, come in your jammies, bring a beverage. I'll meet you at 8. And the first one I did, Stacy, I had all but 2 families. So I had 19 parents and I had couples even that were there and shared, and it was wonderful. So yes, and then they asked if they could do it again. And I thought, well, I'm happy to facilitate it. I would like it to not take 2.5 hours next time.
Ooh.
It was 2.5 hours last night. I was like, whoo, boy.
Is that the first time you've done it?
Yes, with the parents. Yes.
Okay.
But there's such a need for it. There's such a need. Mm-hmm. And I did it on Zoom, Stacy.
Okay. I'll let you know how it goes.
You know what? I think the parents will love it. I genuinely, I encourage all of you to try it. And I told them, I said, this is a time without little people. So that's why I scheduled at 8 o'clock, hoping that they were all in bed. So yeah. Okay, Natalie had a question there, Miss Karen.
Raise your hand.
Oh, we're gonna make you talk, Natalie.
Oh, right there. Natalie, do you have a question?
So I didn't really have a question, but I know a lot of school districts are reading books online. And some of my students that I know that are going to be struggling with the transition to a new school and a new face, I've been sharing those read alouds with the parents so that they have an opportunity to see those faces of the kindergarten teachers in the schools that they will be attending.
That's a great idea.
Good idea.
And
Which is,
if you know some of the teachers in the school districts, just contacting them and asking if they would be able to join in on a Zoom meeting or read for the students.
Natalie, that is a really good idea because one of the things that we are missing right now is many schools plan field trips to kindergarten programs. Many schools are, pre-K programs have invited teachers to come in and we can't do that. So that is an excellent idea to bridge that gap between pre-K and kindergarten. The other thing would be really important for everybody to remember is remember that we are typically getting parents information on kindergarten roundup and how to get their kiddos enrolled in kindergarten. Well, we're not in session. So it's really important that you reach out to school districts and get that enrollment information for parents so that they're not left for, oh yeah, August rolled around and I have not enrolled my kid in kindergarten yet. But what a great idea. That's a great idea.
Well, and I know,
Excellent idea.
I also know that there is a link. A lot of the kids, once they go to kindergarten, have to do the NWEA testing. And a lot of them do not know how to use a mouse. So like during our conferences, I shared the Practice NWEA website with my parents and encouraged them to use a mouse with their kid during this time so they can navigate, because so many of them are used to touch screens that when they go to sit down to do the testing, they're not going to know how to use a mouse, or they're going to be sitting there touching the screen and everything.
Natalie, will you send me that link and I will include it with the PowerPoint? Would that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing, Natalie. And Shelley, did you have something to add?
Yes, I was thinking about the summer. So we don't know exactly what's going to happen for the summer, but I was just wondering, what does that look like for some of the other providers?
I do have a program that does not typically run in the summer, but has opted to keep their virtual pre-K classroom going this summer for many reasons. One is to get parents used to, if this happens again in the fall and your kid's in kindergarten, this is something that you're going to have to do. But also to continue that kindergarten readiness, because I think everybody can honestly say right now that you've got kiddos where you're like, oh my God, what are they going to do this fall? I had so much to work with them on. You were being so intentional with your data. So I have heard of programs that are just continuing this throughout the summer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if Karen or Lori has heard anything from their programs.
Has anybody else had any information on that? No, Lori, have you heard anything?
I haven't. I know the programs that I support are one of them is currently open, one of them is closed and will be reopening for summer care. I think that I know for me, I am going to continue like a once a week thing with my kids. And I think it's more to kind of get them ready and used to this is potentially what it may look like moving forward. I love the idea that Natalie shared of like teaching them how to use a mouse, things like that. I wouldn't have thought of that, Natalie. I wouldn't have. So I think those are wonderful. I hope that we will still stay connected, all of us as providers. You have my email address. You're welcome to email me. You're welcome to reach out to your teacher mentors. I know we kind of are heading into our summer break as well. What I know about the amazing team at KCR4s is we just sort of feel like you're part of our family too, and we are here. Our role is to support you all. And if you are having questions during the summertime, I want you to have access to me. I'm in the same boat you are. We all are here for our kids. So I don't know if they answered your question, Shelley, but the nice thing is we don't have to make a decision today on what we're going to do for summer.
And I'm also wondering if we can talk a little bit about this on the provider call. We have a Friday 2:00 provider calls, and we can check and see what other people are planning or considering for the summer.
I think that's a great idea, Karen. There's so many great ideas that are shared on the provider call, but to piggyback off from that, I do have quite a few providers on my caseload that have said, and I totally agree with this, it's really nice on these provider calls because I feel like as a community, we're getting on the same page, that there's not a competition, but if we're all unified and we know what's your policy going to be about closing for, what tuition or not tuition or online pre-K or not online pre-K, Karen is absolutely right. If you can make every effort to make this provider call, because you really learn a lot from your colleagues.
And yes. Shelley, are you looking for specifically what summer programming might look like?
Yeah, if we don't get back to the schools, how long in a day should a summer program look like if we had to do it online?
Right, okay. Got it. Well, I'll pass this along to Therese as well. Maybe we can get it on the talking point list for the provider call on Friday.
Perfect. I do want to be mindful of our time. as it is just about, we have about 4 minutes left for questions. Hi, Kathleen.
Wait.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry,
Go
I
ahead.
unmuted myself. Sorry. Just to ditto what the teacher mentors were saying, the ECSs are available. Please reach out to us. I know you are so overwhelmed with, trying to get in contact with families and sending resources and all of that. I mean, as your ECS, I'd even be more than happy to, do this presentation with your families, invite them to a Zoom meeting and do that and take that off your plate. So reach out to us. There are some things that we can take off your plate.
Thank you for saying that, Kathleen. And I apologize. We should have really introduced Kathleen at the beginning. She is an early childhood specialist that I know myself. I'm very blessed to work with and partner with her in my programs. And so thank you for saying that, Kathleen, because you guys do, if you're a GSRP, you've got your ECS at your fingertips. Definitely utilize them.
Yes, and the same with the families that I support, or the programs that I support. Natalie is in one of the programs that I support. I'm happy to help you navigate all this as well. As we all do this together, it's a team, and we're all learning. I mean, come on, guys, look at Carolyn. Look at her. I love you. That's why I had to say it, because I wasn't technical savvy either. And we joke about all the time that us mature women have a little trouble with this technology. But if Carolyn and I can do it, anybody can. So let us help you.
Any other last comments before we wrap up?
Can you see you being able to share this information with your families and the understanding of why this is important? Okay.
That's great. So thanks again to Laura and Renee for sharing. And we have all of your email addresses. So we'll be sending out the PowerPoint with the information. And thank you for sharing all of your ideas as well that you are using in how you're connecting with your families. And we're going to also be, we have your names, you've written in on the chat. And so we'll be sending a certificate for this professional development. Please remember to upload that on your My Registry account so you have that documented. So we'll send that via email when we get that finished. And we really appreciate you taking your time tonight to share with us and to learn with us.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.